Hello again, everyone. Welcome to our session. This session is entitled, I don't know because I can't see there it is, Geometry and Spatial Reasoning in Early Childhood for English Learners. So the strategies that we're going to talk about today are good for all kids, right? But they are going to very specifically target our English learners. And most of my sessions have been targeted around language arts heavy instruction, right? Obviously the literacy block, looking at science and social studies, right? Where we deal with a lot of academic vocabulary for English learners. But we know that in math, there is just as much rich academic vocabulary, but a lot of times I was guilty of it as well, even as a 12-year veteran of a bilingual class. We forget that giving kids a conceptual understanding of math, which is especially necessary at early childhood, also involves them developing and utilizing that very rich academic vocabulary. And so geometry and spatial reasoning is a really great place to introduce that. And then I hope to do some more sessions in the spring with more of math, dealing more of the numeracy side, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, all of that stuff, looking towards building equations and parsing word problems and yada, yada, yada. All right, it looks like we do have one more person joining us. I'm going to let them in and we're going to continue. I think John may be our only new participant. I don't know if he's been in a session with me, but I am Gabriel Verone. I'm a 15-year veteran of education, been at the Service Center for a little over a year now. In September, I transitioned to the ESL bilingual English learner support team. Here's my beautiful family. My wife's a nurse. My son Malachi is 13. He's in 8th grade. Zachary is 8. He's in 3rd. We just read all 7 Harry Potter books out loud. He was surprisingly not that sad when Dobby died, which kind of broke my heart a little bit. And I work with preteens at Southcliffe Church in Fort Worth as well. So I don't ever get a break. I realize I'm teaching on Wednesday, I'm teaching on Sundays, I'm teaching all the time. But you know what Spider-Man said, with great power comes great responsibility. Pretty sure that's in the Bible somewhere too. Okay, so here's our agenda for today. We are going to review the standards or TEKS, right? The standards for the pre-K guidelines, TEKS for all the other grade levels, for geometry and spatial reasoning in early childhood. We're going to focus pre-K 2, but if you are doing 3, 4, 5, so a lot of these skills are just as applicable. And what I really want to focus on is identifying the relevant verbs for student outcomes. And the reason we want to identify those relevant verbs is because they're going to help us to incorporate our second item on the agenda, which is high leverage instructional strategies that address those standards across the classroom and across the curriculum. And the most high leverage strategy is speaking and writing with academic vocabulary. All right. So here's what I want you to ask yourself. And welcome, Robin. I hope you're in. It looks like you're good. So just if you do need anything, unmute, let me know, put yourself in the chat. Okay, what are the pre-K guidelines and the kinder first, second grade TEKS actually ask students to know and do with geometry and spatial reasoning? Okay, we could do this one of 2 ways. I just give you the 5 minutes and let you explore those TEKS. There are not that many of them. So even in 5 minutes, you should be able to look at 2, maybe even 3 grade levels. Or you can just look at your specific grade level, or since there's only 5 of y'all total, or 4 of y'all, if I know how to count, we can pick we can pick a grade level and just work there. So somebody unmute yourself. What would you prefer to do? You want to just do a dive on your own? Do you want to look at one as a team? What would you like to do?
Gabriel, I'm comfortable with pre-K, obviously, with early childhood. So, I'm fine with that. I don't know if anyone else shares the same thoughts, but I'm willing to collaborate on anything. So,
Dana?
I'm special ed, and I have everywhere from second all the way down to pre-K.
So here's what I'm going to do then. I'm just going to give you the 5 minutes, look through those, and what I want you to do is find similar verbs. You're going to find there's going to be some strands that are going to be similar, and you know it's going to scaffold up, right? You're going to start with the baseline skill in pre-KK, and then it's going to scaffold up. I just want you to try to find some trends in terms of what are students being asked to do with shapes, with geometry, with spatial reasoning, okay? So jot those down. You can drop them in the chat, however you want to keep track of that. I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it, okay? If there's any questions, please unmute and let me know, or drop those in the chat, and here we go. And again, oh, you know what? Give me 1 second. I'm slow. You can use the QR codes, but let me drop the bit.lys in the chat for you, okay? Sorry about that. I have them all ready to go. I just
I
have
don't
to
know if I
grab
can
them.
get the QR codes to work.
Okay, here we go. So I'm gonna drop those in the chat for you, and then I'll put the QR codes back up for you, okay? There we go. That should be all of them, I think, right? Okay, the first one is, did it only do 2 of them? Oh, okay, I'll grab the rest, sorry. The cursor, oh, it failed me. Okay, so the first one is the pre-K guidelines, the second one is kinder. Sorry, I don't know why my computer is giving me a really hard time. No, it just did the same exact ones. All right, go ahead and jump in pre-K and K. I promise I will get the other ones on there. But at least I'm recording this so future people, other people who, if they choose to watch it, can watch me crash and burn, not just in real time, but in the virtual realm also. Okay, you are good. They're all in the chat now. I'm going to share my screen again, and I'll just give you 4.5 minutes so that we can honor your time, okay? Dana, you have chosen to do this more than once with me, so you know that I'm really not very skillful. And
Hey.
poor Ken watched me when I had a real presenter to help me. So, you know, by myself, I'm a disaster. It's like me without my wife. It's not good. All right, take your time. Go. Hello. I don't know if it's Kaylee. I'm not sure because I don't want to pronounce it
Yes,
incorrectly.
it's Kaylee. I just got
Kaylee.
off of, or I just left.
No, I totally understand. I get it. I'm actually going to start all future sessions at 4 because I realized I didn't give people enough time for dismissal. But what we're doing is you can choose I will put them in the chat again, but we're looking at common threads and common standards in the pre-K, K, 1 and 2 TEKS or guidelines for geometry and spatial reasoning. So you can look at your relevant grade level or as many as is possible in the next 2 minutes and just see what verbs are they asking us to actually teach the kids. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to pop those bit.lys in the chat for you again. Because you don't have access to the, there we go. You don't have access to the old chat once you join the meeting, like it's a brand new chat for you. I'm going to restart the timer, but for those of you diligently working away, we got about 1 minute and 40 seconds. Oh, it looks like John got kicked out. He's coming back. Oh, John, you're there. I see you. You have a cool planet background.
Hi.
John, you might want to mute or turn off your other device because otherwise every time you unmute, it'll make a horrible feedback loop. Which if you're dropping an album on iTunes tomorrow will sound cool, but it's not cool for the participants.
It's fixed. Sorry.
There you go. Ken, you like that one. You know you did. I'm sorry, I'll be quiet so you guys can look at the teaks. I apologize. I'm that kid that I always got annoyed at in my class. I'm him. That's why he annoyed me, because it was like looking at my younger self with like less forehead. Dana, you okay?
Yeah, I'm just having a hard time staying with the same fatigues.
Gotcha. And don't worry, because I'm gonna make this real simple on the next slide.
Okay.
I just feel like even though it's hard work and nobody likes looking at standards, it's good to kind of put our brain there.
Oh, I got you.
Okay, admitting somebody. Mary, is that you? Can you hear me? Well, I think, are you the one that sent me the email, Mary? You can't hear yet. Okay. Well, I'll talk to her in a second. So here's what I want you to look at. I kind of went ahead and summarized, right? But there's a lot of information on this slide, okay? But go ahead and talk to me about, and you can use this as a cheat sheet. What were some of the common verbs? What were some of the common things that we're asking students to do with geometry and spatial reasoning, regardless of grade level?
Identify?
Yes. So starting off in pre-K, we identify simple shapes, right? By the time we're in second grade, we're looking at specifically at figures, right? Quadrilaterals, polygons, and we're looking at three-dimensional solids as well. Fantastic. What else?
I was going to say using or manipulating the shapes, or even creating the shapes. So knowing shapes, basically being able to know enough about them to make them or create them.
Perfect. So composition and creation, and then eventually decomposition, breaking down, right? Also, because in pre-K, it starts with manipulation, because that physical manipulation gives them a conceptual understanding that a three-dimensional solid is composed of different two-dimensional shapes, and that it retains its attributes no matter how we move it, right? A 4-year-old's not going to say that to you unless they're Sheldon, right? But it's that beginning of that understanding. Good. What else do you notice? Anything else? And I just saw it in the chat and I read it. Sorry about that. Kaylee, you said identify, count, understand. Okay, good. Very good. Anyone else? All right, so let's move on with hold on. I have another chat, which is also really hard to open when you're sharing your screen. All right, don't be offended. I'll get you in a second.
I also said
Sort. Yes. Okay, so it starts off with sorting in the lower grades, right? And then eventually that sorting graduates to classifying, right? Okay, because they want to be able to sort them out and distinguish between them, right? But then eventually it moves up to classification, and that classification happens according to attributes, okay? And if you'll notice, I want you identifying those verbs, because unless we use that language with students, they are never going to use it. And unless they use that language, we stunt their understanding and their growth in math. Not having kids intentionally use math vocabulary is like giving a preteen cigarettes. They're going to grow, but not very much. Okay. Sorting by, yes, and thank you, Mary, you're right. Sorting by one attribute and then two, yes. So the difficulty and degree of sorting also increases. Okay, so for today, now this is not all inclusive. There are a few little elements that are not included in these three general categories. But for today, we're gonna look at breaking the standards into recognizing and identifying, sorting and classifying, and then manipulating, creating, and composing, okay? And then composing will also touch upon decomposing, all right? So what I've done for you is I've created and I'm gonna drop this in, maybe, I'm gonna drop this bit.ly in for you. And this allows you to make it should force you to make a copy of a geometry and spatial reasoning planner. So click on that. Please let me know. It should open up a planner for you that looks like this one. If it doesn't work, because sometimes no matter how much you change the settings to ensure that it works, sometimes it still doesn't. So is there anyone that is unable to open that? Everyone get in?
Open it?
You could?
I don't know. How do you open it?
You should just be able to click on it in the chat, and then it should give you a box that says make a copy. Ken, John, Mary, anyone else? You're in? You're good? All right. If one person did it, everyone should be able to do it. Now, again, I'm not trying to make you be like, oh my gosh, I have to do lesson plans and now you want me to do this too? No, this is just a way for you to think about, if I'm dealing with this, what are some things I might want to take into account? And we're going to use this to practice today. Okay. All right. So let's think about recognizing and identifying. Okay. There's some very simple ways to do this that you already do. Okay. I'm sure we've all done the songs, right, with the kinesthetic motions in early childhood, where they make a triangle, right, or they make a square, right, or they say a square is all the same size, or rectangles, you know what I mean? So singing it, saying it, seeing it, doing it activates multiple synaptic pathways, and we always want that, okay? So we also know doing specific read alouds that talk about shapes, right? Then there's having children identify real world objects in the classroom that are shapes as well, so that they're aware of their environment and that they're aware that the shapes and the figures that we're looking for are everywhere, right? We also can do that around the entire school. And then even with solids, we can have children identify and match solids to a card. Again, is this every single idea that you could have? No, obviously not. But what it does tell you is in a variety of ways, in a variety of contexts, and in the classroom and outside the classroom, you can have children recognizing and identifying, okay? Then another thing I want you to notice is it talks about using both formal and informal geometric language, okay? And so the biggest high leverage instructional strategy that I want you to bring to bear is, when I'm going to teach one of these TEKs or guidelines in pre-K, right? I need my children to know X by the time they're done. How am I going to get them to express that verbally and in writing? Thank you. Mary also said using pattern blocks with card patterns, right? So that they are physically manipulating those objects and doing that matching and creating larger pictures so that they see that objects can be composed of smaller objects, right? Which then lends itself to not just recognition and identification, but also composition and decomposition. I want you to think about, it's like your ELPs, right? You should always have a content standard and a language standard, right? But you can't have a language standard if you don't know what you want the kids to say or to write, okay? So in pre-K, you might start with something as simple as, I see a what? I see a circle. I see 3 red triangles, right? Wouldn't that be great with some of our 4-year-olds that are having a hard time just developing oral language, if we could get them to say that, right? And of course, they're not going to be able to write that, but they certainly are never going to write it if they can never say it, right? Or even saying, I recognize 3 different shapes. Those shapes are a triangle, a rectangle, and a circle. I identified a red, right? And again, My standard is identify, it's recognize. Why not have the children say that, right? The objects in our classroom that are triangles include, right? And that is a STEM that a first or second grader can easily do, but it sets them up for later academic success because you're giving them some scaffolding for how to list, right? Some of the three-dimensional solids I identified in our school include, right? Let's say this rectangular prism is composed of the following two-dimensional figures, right? A second grader is not going to say that by themselves. But if you start the class with that, today we are going to identify which two-dimensional figures compose specific three-dimensional solids. And you do that together, whole group, you have them do a turn and talk, right? Then you give them that STEM, you have them practice orally, then they can write it. Or you have them write it down first on a sticky note, then they practice orally. However you want to do that, okay? So again, these are not all inclusive, right? But these are just some models that you can use for children as you are getting them to combine an activity with intentional use of language. And if you're like, oh, those are good STEMs, I really like them, I wish I had them, I'm going to send you the PowerPoint tomorrow. You will have all of these and you can wow your friends and neighbors and they'll be like, wow, Dana, your use of academic vocabulary and math is stellar. And you just never give me any credit. I've been doing that my whole career.
Thank you.
All right. So now I know I'm the worst. I'm going to put you guys into a couple of breakout rooms. I want you to open up the planner. Okay. I want you to choose a standard. I don't care what standard it is. You pick, it could be pre-K, it could be first, right? So you should have the link to the standards open. You should have your planner open. And here's what you're going to do. Choose one pre-K through second grade standard to focus on. Choose one or two ways the students are going to recognize or identify shapes. Okay. It could be a whole group way. It could be in centers. It could be a way that we've already talked about. It could be from one of the pictures. I'm not asking you to reinvent the wheel, right? And then write one or two sentence stems that your students are going to use to talk and write about the shapes, figures, or solids they recognized or identified, okay? One standard, one way they're gonna do it that you're concretely, and one STEM. Again, can you use one like I showed you? Of course. Can you use your own? Absolutely. And if you have some time, then write a second way and a second STEM, okay? Do we have any questions? All right. I'm going to drop these instructions in the chat because once I put you in your breakout room, they will be gone. Okay. If you do not have access to the planner or the standards, now is the time to tell me. Mary, you had a question, by the way. I just saw it. I'm not. Can you elaborate? You said, when I say writing, what am I referring to? And Mary, I'll get you the standards. Mary, do you want to unmute and tell me?
Technology is still a struggle for me.
That's okay.
When you talk about writing in pre-K, if you have administrators and people in there, they think, oh, well, we have to get those pre-Kers to be writing. Well, we're just trying to get them to hold a pencil.
Right, absolutely.
Elaborate on that and give a clearer description.
Absolutely. Okay, so, but surely sometimes you allow the children to do inventive writing, right? Where they, right, or you do it, let's say at a small group table, right? Where I've even had my kid, like, I'm going to provide you a scaffolded STEM, right? Where I might say, I see a, I'll put a blank, and then they can draw a circle. And then go ahead and tell me what you wrote. And I want them to use the language, and I want them to as best they can to track. So it's up to the level of your kiddos, right? And and again, with L's or with any kid, I'm perfectly okay giving them a STEM and having them fill in one word. And even if I give them that word with the broken up, dot print, now that's not what it's called, but my brain is failing me. And I have them fill that is perfectly valid, right?
Because in pre-K, you start with scribble and then you go into just making letter forms. So,
and so I'm not asking you to do anything that is developmentally inappropriate for them or to skip those steps, right?
Right. I just like to reiterate it because if people don't know that, then they're thinking, writing is the correct form in pre-K.
And you are right that oftentimes administrators have unrealistic expectations of pre-K because they're like, why aren't they doing worksheets? Because the worksheets are not in the pre-K guidelines except to tell you not to do them, right? I totally get that. I know I seem like I don't know anything, but I promise I know stuff. But no, I'm glad that you clarified that. That is a good point. Okay. Does everyone understand we're doing one standard, one way that they're going to recognize or identify, one STEM, and again, they can use orally and in writing or one or the other. Okay. All right. So let me send you to breakout rooms here. Actually, I'm going to send you to 2 breakout rooms. So there should be 3 in each. Okay. You should have an invitation in the center of your screen that says join, and you will have a 1-minute warning when it's almost time to be done. You have 5 minutes, okay? All right, welcome back, everybody. So, just real quick, unmute yourself or drop it in the chat. What are some ways that your group discussed having children identify or recognize shapes? And what was a STEM that you utilized for that purpose?
You made it sound simple now. We got in there and trying to manipulate all of the different things that we're supposed to do on the Zoom of finding things. Got us back behind on schedule, but
Sorry
we did.
about that.
But I'm sorry, no problem. It's just getting used to the Zoom, I guess. But we were looking at a kindergarten teak. And it was, I can identify, using the word identify. And then they were to look around the room and find a shape that they could identify.
Okay. And once they did, what would you have them say?
I can identify a yellow circle. That is, we could even go that is sitting on the wall or hanging on the wall or something like that, where it would be.
Perfect. And again, that is very useful because it gets the kids thinking in terms of complete thoughts, right? A complete thought verbally is the precursor to a complete thought in writing. Excellent. All right. Anyone from the other group? Thank you so much, Dana. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Yeah, Gabriel, John and Robin and I, we talked about pre-K standard. We just did the very basic one, the first one for geometry, which is I can name common shapes. And so a sentence stem we could use it 2 different ways. They could say, or they would say the shape, and the name of the shape is like a, whatever that shape is like. For instance, the circle is like a cookie. The circle is like a wheel. The circle is like a ball. Or they could say the ball is like a circle, which would be another way to do that because it would have them force them to name the actual shape. So that's one of the ways that we would have them use that.
Perfect. And then using that comparative language already bumps up the level. And to Mary's point earlier, here's the thing, right? We can't expect 4-year-olds to write like super amazing complete sentences because like they can barely grip a pencil, right? But oral language, studies have shown oral language is an enormous precursor to later success in reading and writing, right? You cannot read or write what you cannot say. It's just the fact of the matter. And so using an intentional STEM to develop good oracy is just as important, okay? And again, you're like, well, but how can the kid, he can't read the STEM. I get it. I know he can't, right? But if you say it, if you model it, and then as you're with your group, and if you're fortunate enough to have an aide, right? Or you do like a flipped model where you post a video, right? If you say, okay, on Seesaw, I want you to go to your house, and I want you to find at least 4 circles, and I want you to say, I found a circle. It looks like a clock. I found a circle. It looks like my dog's food bowl, right? They can record themselves on Seesaw And then you praise them. Oh, I saw little Isaiah and he used the STEM so well. And you see what I'm saying? You can still build that even in a virtual setting. Okay. The key is model, 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 and encourage, right? You get more of what you encourage and incentivize. All right.
Make
Yeah.
them responsible.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who was that you, Mary?
No.
Go ahead, Mary.
Make them responsible. Make sure you check what they've said and give them feedback. Because if you
Yes.
don't make them responsible, they're going to do what they want to do.
I had a good friend of mine who retired from teaching for many reasons, but he said, if it's not monitored, it's not required. And Dana, you were going to say?
Oh, I was just, as you all were talking, I was thinking, and then it goes with what it was just said. I can identify a square because it has 4 sides. And I know I'm a little bit higher than that, but I like that because then it tells why they're thinking it's a square.
And that is a perfect segue into our next one, which is sort and classify. You jumped ahead. So Dana, we're just going to skip this section because Dana already taught you. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so for sorting and classification, this is a great place to bring in your graphic organizers, okay? And I'm going to drop, if you are using Google Class and you have not seen these Google graphic organizers, they're fantastic. Usually, again, we use those with literacy. Why can't you use a bubble map? You put circle in the middle and you're like, well, dude, they're 4 years old. Yes, but if you watch the video on how to create it, you can drop a whole bunch of shapes, pictures into the Google slide. If they're doing an iPad, they just move. Okay, boys and girls, you record a little video. I have the word circle with a picture in the middle. I want you to sort through all these shapes and I want you to move all the circles into other parts of the bubble map and leave out everything that's not a circle. Your mom and dad are gonna help you post that and I'm gonna give you some feedback, right? True. And again, we're gonna make a Venn diagram. Maybe we don't use it in writing. Maybe we just use it with shapes, right? Like Ken said, right? The clock and the cookie are both the same, but why are they different, right? In the middle, well, because one has chocolate chips and one has numbers. And they can put pictures of that or they can say it, okay? All right, let me go. So you should be able to open that bit.ly and it will take you to those graphic organizers. And again, you don't need to take note of that right this second because I'm gonna share everything with you. The bottom line here, now I'm not gonna show you this video on card sorts. I'll let you, it is hyperlinked, so you can watch it later if you'd like. But with older kids, right? Using something like, even with little kids, but using something like a card sort where you give them some categories, right? And then you give them different words or pictures and letting them decide. Or if you want to bump it up, just give them a whole bunch of figures and let them make their own categories and justify why did you create that category based on what, right? And if you tell them ahead of time, hey, you're going to create the categories, but I need you to be able to tell me how many did you create, why did you create them, and what criteria did you use? And you're like, what's criteria, mister? Criteria is the stuff that makes stuff what it is, right? So the criteria for you is you need to tell me why did you do it that way? That's the criteria. Oh, okay, right? So, and again, I'm not gonna read you. I'll give you about 30, 40 seconds. You can read, but if when using formal and informal geometric language for classifying and sorting, just make sure that that language actually requires analysis. That's all. It needs to be at the Bloom's taxonomy of analysis. All right. And even for littles, these shapes are the same or different because that's a hard question for a 4-year-old, right? Imagine if they could say, well, because this one's round and this one's pointy. That's pretty good, right? It's not the best language, but it's informal, isn't it?
Have you seen attribute blocks?
Yes, but it's been a while. So remind me, Mary.
Attribute blocks, hold on. I can do
Oh,
better.
she's got them. She's ready. Ken, you paying attention? Because Mary, I think she's got us both beat, man. Maybe not you, maybe just me.
I've been doing this a long time. These are attribute blocks. And these are one of your key things to use with children because you have all the different sizes, okay, all the different shapes. And they can sort them. They can sort them by shapes, size, and thickness. So they can sort them in more than one attribute. And you can, it's a kinesthetic, tactile way of doing it. Even the smalls can do it.
So then I'm lying. That I was thinking of something else. I have never seen attribute blocks. I was not
Attribute
fortunate.
blocks, every classroom should have them because you can use them for so many different lessons. And you can start out easy and you can go up to sort by 2 different kinds of attributes with them.
And the only thing I will tell you is that sorting, if you are not pairing it, because if you miss that opportunity, I'm not saying you do this, Mary, I'm just saying in general.
Okay.
If you miss that opportunity to have kids talk about what they're doing and to
Mhm.
reinforce that language, that's just sad, because that's where the magic happens, people, right? Yes, touching them, putting them into groups, but if they don't, when they're sorting, right, they are doing invisible thinking. They're creating invisible pathways of thought and knowledge, right? But them talking and writing about it makes the invisible thinking visible. And unless we can see what they're thinking, we can't help them.
Yeah, you can get them to verbalize orally or write with this. So.
And there's nothing wrong. And like, again, because now everyone's using technology, right? Even if you're in class and you got synchronous and asynchronous, if you're lucky enough to have devices, use something like Seesaw, use something like Google Class, and have the kids record themselves. And you know what I mean? That is a perfect exit ticket and a way to hold them accountable. Give me 2 sentences about why you sorted them this way, why you sorted them that way, and provide that modeling. Okay. Because for time's sake, we still have one more dimension to go through. Again, I just want you to know, if you want to know how to create a digital card sort, okay, this can be done with littles as well, but all the cards would probably have to have writing and pictures, right? But if you're doing second, first, or upper grades, this is a really great video from Region 11 done by Shelly, whose last name I don't remember, even though she's my friend. I just saw her at a meeting this morning. But she actually goes through on Google how to create a card sort. And this is a really great way to complement the digital graphic organizers that I shared with you, okay? So you're probably gonna need a different standard, but all I want you to do, choose a standard. How are they gonna sort? What are they gonna say when they sort or classify? That's all this means. Use the same organizer, same groups. How are they gonna sort? How are they gonna classify? What are you gonna make them do? Is it a whole group? Is it centers? And what are they going to say or write about after they do it? Okay? Questions? No? All right. Ready, set, go to your rooms. And then I need different people to share out when you come back. So Kaylee, if you haven't had a chance, or John, I'm going to put you on the hot seat. No offense. I still like you. All right. I know we lost Ken because he had to go to another meeting. Hooray for him. It's always great to have 2 meetings at 4:30 in the afternoon. By the way, Robin, I wish you hadn't turned your camera off. Your Yellowstone background was super cool. All right. So anybody want to share out what your group talk about? What standard did you pick? How are they going to classify and sort? And what sentence stem would you use? Anybody? And again, if you're like, I don't want to share out, put it in the chat. Mary, it looks like you're talking, but you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We went back to the attribute blocks and let them sort them. And then they have to say, I have sorted my shapes by, and they have to tell us what attributes. And then move it up to 2 attributes. And then you also say why. Why have you done it? Explain it. Even if they've done it right, they have to explain it.
Okay. So let me ask you this. If your kiddos, you're talking, and this can be any grade level, right? Because this happens all the time. You ask them to use a stem and they're like, I sorted circles, right? And they don't give you a complete sentence. How do you fix that?
I just look at them and say, what? Here, let's try it again. I sorted circles, and feed them the second part of the sentence. And then the next time you start them and let them finish it. And then the next time, okay, we've already done this. You know how to do this. You teach them the routine.
Mary is a genius. Did you know that there's actually a name for that? It's called the teach back.
Oh, well,
It started out in medical practice. My wife's actually the one that told me about it, and I use it in my trainings now. But basically, the nurse sends you home, right? She's like, okay, how are you going to care for she's like, you're going to care for your wound like this. You're going to take these meds at these times. How are you going to care for your wound and take your meds? And then you listen, right? If the person tells you the right answer, you're good. If they leave stuff out, you refresh it for them. And then you say, okay, so you're going to take your meds at these times. So what time are you going to take your meds? And it's exactly like that for kids. You provide the missing piece so that they can give you what you're asking them to. Thank you, Mary. You're the
welcome.
Mary, listen, I'm going to do this session again in the spring. You want to just come as my, I'll just turn it over to you and you can present.
Sure.
The people don't have to listen to me.
Whatever you want.
Okay. I'll keep you send me an email. I'll keep you.
As long as it's not the week I'm on a cruise.
Okay. All right. Or you could bring me along on the cruise. No, I'm just kidding. That would be weird. Okay. Anyone else want to share out? Because we only have about 10 minutes and I want to make sure we finish on time. All right. So let's keep this train a-rolling. So we've done recognition and identification. We've done sorting and classification. The last general category was manipulating, creating, and composing, right? So children can make shapes or a combination of shapes out of any number of materials, right? Cups, Legos, blocks, right? You can even use Legos in creative ways. You can use Play-Doh. And the beautiful thing about something like Play-Doh is that as you get into first and second grade and you're making equal parts and then eventually partitioning into fractions, that becomes much, much easier, right? This is a great opportunity for children to use their bodies, right? They like to wiggle, they like to move, right? So why not let them work together and creatively compose shapes, right? Under supervision, right? And then I don't know if you've seen this, but I thought this was a great idea. Now, this is a specific product called Stretchies. But you know, like when you bought those exercise bands and you told yourself you were going to exercise because you wanted to lose weight and they've just been sitting in your closet forever? Well, you can take them out and your kids can use them to kinesthetically make shapes, right? And then, you know the old tried and true making solids out of toothpicks, straws, and or marshmallows, right? It was good 10 years ago. It's still good today. Just don't let them eat the marshmallows, please, because they've been touching them like that. Don't let them do that. I don't even know if that's legal anymore with coronavirus, but anyway. Okay. And then looking at formal and informal language, right? Here, I would use less stems and more frames, right? Where there's multiple. And this is more so now for littles, right? My pre-KK, I made rectangles by, right? I combined Legos together. Oh, well, how many sides did you have to make? You know, teasing that language out of them. But for the older kids that can write, you want to look at a more complicated stem, right? I created equal parts with my square by cutting it into 4 pieces. The fractions I created are fourths, right? Or I used the following 2-dimensional figures to create a prism, right? I used 1 square and 3 triangles, whatever it might be, okay? For time's sake, I'm not gonna send you to your group because otherwise we will not finish on time, but this is the same thing. Just thinking about how am I gonna have them create or compose? How am I gonna have them decompose or partition, right? And then what language do I want them to use, okay? Last thing I want you to think about is that, and this is why I put environment and schedule in the planner, opportunities for students to use geometric academic language don't just have to happen during your math block, right? They can be incorporated throughout the day. So when you're taking a brain break or doing recess, right, go ahead and play them a song and sing about shapes, locate shapes, right? When you're transitioning, you might say, okay, the first, raise your hand if you can name the attributes of a triangle. And when they do, they get to line up first, right? So when you're reading in other subjects and there are shapes in the pictures, have children stop and identify those, right? It's not a long rabbit trail that you're following. It's just another small opportunity to roll that skill in. And then during whole group instruction and circle time, right? There are ample shapes and figures up on this board that children can identify, right? So you call one child up using your equity sticks or dojo, whatever, or if you're doing my class screen and you're doing it virtually and you say, identify 3 rectangles, go. and then you tell them use the stem. I identify these shapes as rectangles, right? So again, nothing groundbreaking here, just being intentional about using every opportunity for children to reinforce that language. Okay? Now, what I am going to do, I have to turn in to my bosses, who then turn into TEA, an impact measure for each session that I do. So it's just a quick 3-question Zoom poll. I'm going to open that poll. If you'll just, it's 3 multiple choice questions. If you'll just be kind enough to answer those, shouldn't take but a couple of minutes. I have to turn this in to demonstrate that you actually learned something. So if you didn't learn anything, please pretend. No, I'm just kidding. But no, this does help me to know if I need to make adjustments, right? All right, so far I have 1 person voted. Thank you so much. Now 2 people. 4, all right. Looks like, I guess I'm the 5th. No, I'm just waiting on 1 more person.
You know, I'll say something. I've been teaching for 30 years, and a lot of this started way back when, but you all of a sudden you get so much you forget. I've always used sentence stems, and for some reason this year I've been so overwhelmed. I look up and I go, where the heck are my sentence stems? And so you've helped me a lot in the last session, and then, you know, using with math and stuff. So I agree. Sentence stems are very, very important. And to have them up there, my favorite sentence stem is I agree with blank because, or I disagree with blank because. And I've always had that up in my room. But for some reason, until this last the session, not this one, but the last one you did, I didn't have it. So thank you.
Look, I get it. It's the same thing, because you know, a lot of times you ever think, what do my administrators do all day? Because they don't seem to help me. They just give me a hard time. It's because they, like all of us, we get lost in the tyranny of the urgent, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and plus every year it's a new program and a new curriculum and a new this, and this year is absolutely insane. And so it's just a nice refresher, that's all. But that's why I started with the TEKS and the standards, right? Because we need to know, okay, what do they need to know? And then how do I get them to show me that they know that by what they say and what they write? It's
using
really,
those verbs.
Yeah,
I haven't been doing that, and I know better.
No one is judging you. Thanks for being honest. We get it, right? John gets it. He's over there. He's giving the little mini nods. See, he gets it. Okay, we're almost done because I know everyone wants to go watch the Bills and the Chiefs because it's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna send you my other sessions. If you like these, please come see me some more. I'll have those available to you. And then if you want to follow me on Twitter, Facebook. And we also have ESL bilingual, early childhood, all kinds of resources. And you, again, do not need to be aware of any of this right this second. So I'm going to send all of it to you in a follow-up email. Look for that email. Tomorrow, I'll submit your attendance. Look for an email from Region 11 with a separate evaluation. I know 2 evaluations is ridiculous. That's not on me. I'm required to do that. Once you complete that evaluation, you will have a certificate with your 1 hour of professional development credit in your profile. Okay? So we are done. Thank you for being here. I'm going to stop the recording. If you